Okay, thank you for the introduction, and good morning, everyone. Before I proceed, I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging, and I would also like to recognize all traditional landowners. I would like to take this time to acknowledge the presence of the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, the Honourable James Marape, Ministers of State, corporate executives, and fellow delegates. I'd also like to thank the PNG Core President, Anthony Smare, and the PNG Core team for giving New Porgera the opportunity to present this prestigious event today. So as you can see from the video, after 4 years of care and maintenance, Porgera is now back in operation. And I'd like to tell you about our journey so far and where we're heading going forward. Okay, so for those of you who are not familiar with the project, Porgera is located in Enga Province in the highlands of Papua New Guinea. It's 80 kilometers from the capital of Wabag and 650 kilometers from the closest port of Lae. Gold was first reported in the area in about 1939, and 10 years later, it was traced to Mount Wari. In 1982, the Porgera gold discovery was made, and the SML was granted in 1989. First gold was poured from the mine in 1990, and the operations continued for 30 years until the initial lease term ended, and the government refused to renew it. And consequently, Porgera was placed into care and maintenance. But following lengthy negotiations, a new special mining lease was granted in 2023, and New Porgera was established to restart the operation of the Porgera gold mine. So New Porgera isn't just a new name and a logo. It represents a new start for the operation and a completely new ownership structure and a commitment to genuine partnerships with all stakeholders. 51% of NPL is owned by PNG stakeholders, and this deal is unprecedented. And if you have a look at the pie chart that we've got up here, that's our current ownership structure. NPL have appointed Barrick as the operators of the Porgera gold mine. The new fiscal arrangement that we have in place includes an additional 1% royalty and an additional 2% corporation tax in return for fiscal stability. Subject to conditions that are yet to be fulfilled, namely the safe enjoyment and exclusive occupancy of the tenement areas, there'll be a $15 million landowner restart payment and an annual sustainability payments of $3 million for 10 years into a development fund. Over the life of the mine, PNG stakeholders will receive 53% of Porgera's overall economic benefit, with the remaining 47% split between Barrick and Zijin. The new structure of NPL represents a true partnership between the state of Papua New Guinea and other shareholders. Community and landowners are extremely important to NPL. Not only do we want to maintain good relations with our landowners and communities, but Porgera landowners are also major shareholders within the business. The support from landowners and the community was critical for the mine reopening, and the overwhelming majority of landowners entered into consent compensation agreements in early December 2023 to allow the mine operations to commence ahead of negotiating the long-term compensation agreements. The community development agreement negotiations are progressing, and the long-term compensation agreements have just been concluded with tenement landholders. And we've also just recruited a resettlement manager to address legacy issues. The community development negotiations are continuing, and NPL wants to achieve an equitable distribution of benefits among the PNG stakeholders. An equitable and fair distribution is critical to ensuring social license for the mine, starting with law and order. The CDA is a state-run process coordinated by the MRA. The national government, EPG landowners, Porgera Urban LLG, Porgera Rural LLG, and NPL are participating in negotiations. The benefits to be distributed include 15% equity to be split between landowners and the Enga provincial government, 3% royalty, a $15 million US dollar landowner restart payment, subject to the safe and exclusive enjoyment of the tenement areas, and the Porgera Sustainable Development Fund. And other benefits include the tax credit scheme and special support grants from the government. The long-term compensation agreements were negotiated by two teams from New Porgera. One team focused on the Tarry area, where our HDL line passes through, and the other group focused within Porgera. Negotiations commenced in February 2024 and were concluded on the 4th of December for 14 of the 15 tenements. And this was despite the progress being disrupted by the Mulitaka landslide and various law and order issues. As with the consent compensation agreement, there was overwhelming landowner support for the long-term compensation agreement process for its transparency and inclusiveness. So onto our recruitment and ramp up. So currently, Porgera has employed 2,800 employees, 9% of which are female. And so through our national content plan, we'll look at strategies to increase female employment in our workforce. Our country manager is a great advocate for this and a strong role model for females in our business. When we get to full manning, there'll be about 3,189 employees. 56% of these employees are currently from the local Porgera community, 41% are from other areas of PNG, and a very small 3% are expatriates. Since we restarted, we've recruited over 1,000 new employees. On restart, we've had to hire people who already have the skills required to get Porgera back into production. And unfortunately, not all of these skills are yet present in the Porgera Valley community. However, the key to NPL's future is the development of our locals so that they can gain the skills required to work at NPL. And this will be achieved through our Job Ready and other training programs. It's also important to us to continue to develop the capability of all of our PNG professionals so they can continue to progress into more senior roles within the business. And the restart was a great opportunity for some of our PNG staff. With limited resources on restart, it's been a real chance for the team to demonstrate their capability, and consequently, a number of people have been promoted as a result of their performance into much more senior roles within the business. And we needed to continue to do this. We need to continue to take a chance and give people the opportunity to show us what they can do. So where are we with the restart? So the SML was granted on the 13th of October 2023. And open pit mining started in December, and you can see there one of our trucks being loaded with its first material coming out of the open pit. The first underground ore was brought to surface in January, and again, one of our truck drivers proudly standing by the first ore coming out the mine. In January, the processing plant restarted, and in February, we'd poured our first gold. And you can see the photo here of which was witnessed by the Prime Minister and other dignitaries. And that's the first gold bar that came from Porgera since the restart of the mine. So at that stage of the operation, we were still running on diesel generators and direct leaching the ore, resulting in quite low recoveries. And the reason we were running under these conditions is New Porgera's power is normally supplied by the Hides power plant, which is a 75 megawatt power plant that's 74 kilometers away. And that's supported by 238 transmission towers. And unfortunately, during the care and maintenance period, 12 of the transmission towers were vandalized and they needed to be restud. And almost all of these towers are in very remote and difficult to access locations that require both a ground crew to travel by foot and camp on location and a large heavy lifting helicopter to reposition the towers. So work started on this in December 2023, and in April 2024, the last of the towers was restud and the Hides power station was brought back online. In April, our gold export license was granted, and we shipped our first gold. In May, our oxygen plants were recommissioned, and the first autoclaves were brought back online. And this was the start of the familiar white smoke or steam you see coming from the stacks that symbolizes the start of the mine to so many people living in the Porgera Valley. Tragically, in May, there was also the Mulitaka landslide. Road access to the site was completely cut off. However, site warehouse inventories allowed the restart to continue unimpeded for a period. In June, the performance test was completed, and in August, in line with schedule, the final autoclave was commissioned, concluding this stage of the ramp-up. So the performance test was a significant milestone for the restart of Porgera. We were required to achieve an annualized throughput rate of 5 million tons per annum over a 30-day period. And this started on the 5th of May and was completed by the 3rd of June. The operational ramp-up was an incredible achievement for the women and men employed at New Porgera and a spectacular demonstration of one of our core values of being results-driven. So the tragic Mulitaka landslip occurred on the 24th of May, resulting in a terrible loss of life. And not only were the people impacted that lost their life in this incident, the disaster impacted over 7,000 people and also completely cut off road access to Porgera and the communities past that point. New Porgera Limited community relations team was some of the first people on the ground, assisting with aid, including food and medicine. We seconded a team of personnel to work full-time with the Enga provincial government in Warbag to support the disaster relief efforts. Some of the assistance that we provided included food, temporary shelter, bedding, and disaster relief center infrastructure improvements. Barrick and Zijin, who were the 49% owners of New Porgera, together provided $1 million to support the disaster relief efforts. And New Porgera also facilitated a fact-finding mission by the United Nations. So with road access completely cut off to Porgera, there was an immediate constant stream of people carrying goods across the Mulitaka landslip to communities on the other side. However, this is clearly not practical at an industrial scale. NPL carries significant diesel inventory at site, but with normal consumption about 120,000 litres per day, this inventory quickly depleted. Owing to the road conditions on the Highlands Highway, there's been many other landslips that we've successfully dealt with in the past by pumping fuel from tankers on one side of the slip to the other and ferrying backwards and forwards to site. So in the case of Mulitaka, we employed over 200 locals to provide support in this activity, and so far we've transferred 11 million litres of fuel across the landslip, supplying both the mine and the local Porgera community. New Porgera also transports about 1,000 tons per month of cargo to the mine, and with no road access, Porgera needed to establish a helicopter airbridge over the Mulitaka landslip. So to allow this to happen, cargo is delivered by truck to one side of the airbridge, which we call airbridge 1, and then it is loaded into cargo nets, and then we long line it from helicopters to the other side, airbridge 2, and then we load it onto trucks again, and we transport it to site. So far, we've transferred over 3,000 tons of cargo, and that's been delivered across 2,000 lifts. And again, in this process, 130 Mulitaka locals have been employed to support the airbridge operation. However, we've not been able to mitigate all of the impacts. The freight capacity is limited by airbridge availability and the number of trucks we have on the Porgera side of the landslip. And the reduced freight capacity has resulted in us being able to get no cement for our underground backfill operation, and daily reprioritization of supply needs to occur to meet our demand. I can't emphasize what an enormous task this has been, and the supply department, the security department, our community relations, they've all done an absolute fantastic job to be able to keep the mine operating under such extremely difficult circumstances. The ultimate solution to these current problems is the construction of the Mulitaka bypass road. The PNG Defence Force Engineering Battalion started work on a construction of the bypass road on the 5th of July, using the limited resources that they had available to them. Given the criticality of the road to NPL and the wider Porgera community, NPL agreed to support the road construction from the 29th of July onwards. New Porgera provided a team of surveyors, supervisors, and project managers to assist in the construction. All of the contracts were engaged through our NPL procurement department. The proposed design indicated a construction cost of about $7 million and of the 4.8-kilometer bypass. 287 Mulitaka locals were engaged from the impacted communities to provide traffic management and security during this process. The original schedule indicated that the pilot track would be completed by the 6th of December and the final road completed by the end of 2024. However, various law and order issues have now delayed access until 2025. Law and order continues to disrupt Porgera's operation, and we have not yet had quiet enjoyment of the Porgera mine site. The PNGDF were called out to support the police in April and deployed in significant numbers in July. The Minister of Police has visited in both August and September, and a state of emergency was declared in September. We also hope that the recently announced Anti-Terrorism Act will help to support these efforts. So where does this leave us for the rest of the year? In the second half of the year, there have been 38 days of no production as a result of the Mulitaka landslip and tribal fighting, and many more days operating at a reduced rate. The state of emergency declared in September needs to ensure that law and order is restored. That will allow ongoing fuel and supplies to cross the Mulitaka landslip and security for the road construction team until access can be restored. It's critical that the state of emergency resolve the tribal conflicts within Porgera and the surrounding areas of Enga, and deal with the issues of illegal mining and trespassing. The Mulitaka bypass road needs to be open in December, and the final road completed as early as possible in 2025. If the state can restore and maintain law and order, New Porgera is expected to reach full production by the end of the year. So just to conclude, New Porgera Limited is 51% owned by PNG stakeholders, and it's expected to deliver more than $4.5 billion to these stakeholders over the next 10 years. All of the major milestones were achieved by New Porgera in the restart of the mine, with the process plant fully commissioned in August 2024. However, the tragic Mulitaka landslide cut off all access to Porgera on the 24th of May, significantly constraining the operations. New Porgera have been instrumental in assisting with the disaster relief efforts and construction of the new Mulitaka bypass road. However, Porgera continues to be plagued by up to 30,000 illegal miners per month and high levels of criminal activity and outbreaks of tribal fighting. Restoration of law and order to allow safe enjoyment and exclusive occupancy of the tenement areas is critical to Porgera's future success. Thank you.